Thank you very much for making the time for our expert session. We had 150 registrations, so well done to you guys for coming through. Last year we had a 7:15 tee-off in the morning, so this is much kinder for everybody. I've got two expert guests with me, and Jim Lombardo from Erin Hills and Ryan Fountaine from Baltusrol. Before we get them started, by show of hands, who has played at Erin Hills or Baltusrol? You guys. By show of hands, who wants to play at Erin Hills and Baltusrol? What's wrong with you? Okay, let's get going. Handing over to my experts, and I would like to ask Jim just to do a quick intro on Erin Hills and himself, and followed by Ryan.
Well, first of all, good afternoon. Thanks for coming. I'm Jim. I've been the head professional at Erin Hills. This is my 15th season there, so I've been there for the entire length of the time that the property's been open. So it's been quite an experience. I'm sure that a lot of you know that we had the 2017 United States Open, won by Brooks Koepka. But prior to that, we had the 2008 Women's Amateur Public Links USGA event that no longer exists. We had the 2011 United States Amateur, and then coming up soon in the 2022 we have the Mid Amateur, and then in 2025 we have the United States Women's Open. So, love to see some of you out there.
Good afternoon, I'm Ryan Fountaine. I'm the director of golf at Baltusrol. Just starting my 4th season there. Prior to that, I was actually an assistant there for 4 years from 2010 to 2013. We're a private club in New Jersey. We have 36 holes, approximately 1,500 members. We've hosted 17 major championships, and we have a 2023 KPMG, followed by the 2029 Men's PGA Championship. We've been Tagmarshal users for only a year, so not quite as experienced as Jim, but we're on our way.
Thanks, gents. So we are very fortunate to have these two here because they have some of the best of the best, and they also represent two very different segments of the golf industry. Just by show of hands, if you don't mind me, I'm going to do that a few times. Who represents a private or country club in the audience? And who's on the other side? Daily fee. 50-50, much like our client list. Here's a quick intro on Tagmarshal. So we are a golf course optimization system. We take care of everything that happens on the course, which is your front of house, if you will. That is where your player experiences happen. That is where you get your guests loyal and members with you for life. That's where the magic happens. We have tracked 10 million rounds. We have data business, so data is important to us, and we're excited that we continue to collect and grow in that space. We collected 1 billion rounds of data, sorry, 1 billion data points. Work with 250 clubs. One of the first ones that we've ever worked with is Erin Hills. So again, it's a nice spread of a long-term user versus somebody who's just joined with Ryan, who's had 1 season with us. We're on 25 of the top 100 US clubs. That is your high-end privates that you all know of, your Hazeltine's, Quaker Ridge, Mario, I see you somewhere. Conway Farms, East Lake, also the daily fee space, the resort space, Erin Hills, Whistling Straits, Pinehurst, Pebble Beach. You've heard them all before. Also, Carnoustie over in Scotland, and Ballybunion in Ireland. Many really good ones, but the majority of our customers are straight on the middle of the road, good to better private and daily fee clubs. We also work with the European Tour as tech partners, so those of you who have seen the big hoo-ha they've made around fixing the pace challenges, that is on the basis of their partnership with us, and also adding value to easy links to USGA in the research wherever we can. What we want to, we're an Atlanta business. We've got an Irish office and an office in Cape Town. Personally, I'm German, which explains my very methodical and disciplined accent, and my non-existing sense of humor. So what we want to look at today is 3 points: insight and learnings, some data and USGA research, basically the why. Why should we care about pace? Why should we care about the player experience? We want to look at how to optimally manage it. That's why you're here. You want to learn what are the do's and don'ts, and hence our experts being here. And lastly, we want to optimize savings and unlock revenue. Or in other words, how's it going to make me money and my life easier? That's a classic question. So I know that we're going to get some good answers to that. So to get teed off, insights and learnings, ask yourself what are the 3 golfer experience influences, the top ones. You all are golfers yourself, so look at it from how do you experience the game and also how do you manage and present the game. And if I want to just hand over to Jim and Ryan, what would you guys say are the top 3 experience influences in your experience?
Yeah, I think you could probably pick any of those 5, and they're a priority for us. Certainly conditioning, basic play has always been an issue. You know, customer service and the caddy program kind of go hand in hand, so those would be kind of our top 3 priorities.
Yeah, so especially for us, I think the top, like Ryan there about all 5 being important, but for us it's pace and flow of play, the course conditioning, and then of course the caddy player experience just being one of the experiences we do have. I mean, we've got tons of them, but that one is the one that lasts the longest. So that's the one that's most important to us is that relationship that happens out there.
Thank you. So what we want to look at, what's important to the players. So there's been some very hard-hitting research done by the USGA, and they found that, unsurprisingly, the top experience factor that players state is important to them is course conditioning. At 82% of people say that's key for us. But very close to that, and that is surprising, is the pace, the flow of play, the time it takes to play at 74%. So the question we want to ask is how much effort and energy are we putting into catering to those 2, which are key performance factors? And you very quickly notice that half of your budget goes into conditioning. You're bleeding budget into conditioning every season. How much are you throwing into, and how much budget and attention are you throwing into the flow and pace of play? Even though it's so important, it's probably a tiny amount in terms of budget terms. And we're not saying that you need to throw massive amounts of money at this, but there is a reason why you want to do it better, and there is smart ways to do it better. And it's something to pay attention to because it really can be a game changer with easy solutions. What we want to look at quickly, and this is something that was driven by an esteemed colleague of Jim's. He's obviously taught her everything that he knows. Her name is Professor Christina Schoonover, and she is from the University of Wisconsin and has worked with her colleague Eric Bray on a very in-depth research study that was presented last year at the USGA's Innovation Symposium, and they were looking at defining the golf experience, because if we want to do things better and if we want to provide a better experience to golfers, we need to first know what is it that matters. So they looked at 1,000 experience touch points, and the reason why we got close is because they used our system to gather some data over and above quizzing 25,000 players. So it's really in-depth, and it's the biggest research study that's ever been done in this field. Chris also works as a director of golf, the director of operations. You're the hero. At Erin Hills. So she's wearing 2 hats, which is great because she's got the in-depth knowledge of the course operations, and she's a researcher looking at customer experiences as her field. So what they've done is they've looked at 1,000 experience touch points across a golfer experience design, if you will, that starts with engage, where should we go and play, how are we going to book, phone in or do that online. We arrive, we go through the gates, are we being greeted, do we know where to go? Those are all touch points. The reason why the big part of this graph is so chunky is because that is the reason this all happens, and also that's where most of the time gets spent. So there are lots of touch points out there in terms of do we know where to go, is the conditioning great, do we have on-course interactions with staff, or is there a halfway house, all of those things are touch points. Exodus, restaurant, extenders, we'd love to have you back soon. So you can very quickly see that 1,000 touch points, including sticking your bag in the boot and taking it back out again. So they've classified these across perfect illustrator and perfect delighter. So those are, there is no neutral because there is no neutral emotion. It's either weighted either way. And what they found is quite remarkable, that the worst experience factor, the worst thing that you can do to a golfer is corrective pace of play actions taken in the classic sense. So that's what the golfer will remember and take with them, and that is something they don't like. Also other speed, and that is a conundrum. So if it's slow, if I'm feeling like I'm having to wait, that is a huge conundrum because me as a golfer, I don't want to be told I'm slow, but I don't want to play in a jammed field. On the other hand, the most positive, because it's so unexpected, is positive ranger etiquette. So the ranger comes over and doesn't say, hey guys, you're slow, but he does it in a smart way. And that is something that people cherish and take away because it's so unexpected. And here's two pros and two teams that are doing this phenomenally well and in a new way. We're going to get to the bottom of how that works. So a few other points are the marshal role in general, very negatively perceived. Open and green tees, so I get to the tee, I can just play, I don't have to wait. Players love. Drinks cards, for instance, good thing. Have you heard of the German beer angels? Very popular, good caddies, make around, overall playing speed. So you can see how this is very polar, and every weekend when there's a big tournament event, Twitter implodes if Bryson DeChambeau or somebody else takes a bit too long because everybody relives their own pace nightmares on Twitter in that very moment, and it's very emotional. So, how do we know if we're doing it well? Generally, the course measure is, we've got a goal time. What is your goal time at Erin Hills, Jim?
4:58.
Oh, that sounds horrendously long, but it isn't, because the best 4 hours and 58 minutes that you're going to spend all year, because Erin Hills is a phenomenal course. Why does it take so long to play Erin Hills?
Well, we kind of did some measuring, and we have about 40 minutes of walking between greens to tees, more than you would have at any parkland golf course. So really, it's really about 4:20, but it elapsed time, it just takes that long because of some of the walks that are a couple, 2-3 minutes to get to some of the other holes.
And your course, Ryan, you've got 2 of them, upper and lower. Which one is the famous one?
Both, but the lower. Our goal time is about 4 hours and 12 minutes. I think our average round time is actually 3:56. Obviously we're a much older golf course, late 1800s. It was built to walk, so you don't have the distances between holes that Jim has. But we started at 4 hours and 12 minutes. We'll probably make some adjustments going into this year.
So there is a goal time generally for any course, and you guys would know what that is. And then the traditional way of measuring how we're doing is to look at the average round time. Now the average has got a problem, it lies to you, because you've got very quick early morning rounds, you've got 2 sims, and they drag down the speed and hide all the bad stuff that happens later in the day. So your average looking good, you can say the stats say we're on track. And here's an example. You've got Arizona course that wants to play to 4 hours, the magic number, and they come in 4:06, even though they're pushed through 3,300 rounds, and you would say, hey, well done guys. But the reality is, and that's where data comes into play, is only 27% of that was on pace or faster. So you can really see a lot of it was much faster, and 73% was slow. And if you break that down a bit more, like you can see in the big pie chart, that shows you how much of it was within 10 minutes, within 20, within 30, within 40. So there's a lot of red and bad stuff where people have to wait out there, even though our average is looking fine. So that means we have now underserved these players, and they're going to let you know about it, or they've just given up and say, oh gosh, it takes so long, that's the way it is, and another day wasted where I had to wait. So they might not even tell you, and that's probably the worst thing. But what happens is there's some groups out there, and if they're not managed, and if you don't manage expectations around it, they might hold up the entire field. So we've now underserved a lot of people, and there's a million reasons why we want to do that better. And the technology that we're helping bring into the space, and for the last couple of years, does it in this way. So this is a course that you're all familiar with, that's Carnoustie over in Scotland. These guys invented the game, they know how to manage it, they've got smart course designs, and they started on our system playing at 4:41, and you can see that 29% on pace. Now with tweaking how they manage, putting processes in place, understanding their course better, just 6 weeks later, they managed to bring that to 53% on pace, another 35%, so literally 90% on pace within 10 minutes. That is golfer happiness. There's great flow, it's a balanced course, and as a byproduct, the average round time comes down too, but that's really a byproduct. So this is how we measure success, because the average doesn't measure success, and that is something that you guys look at as part of your stats. We're going to get into that literally daily, and then you look at how's that day gone, how's that week's gone, and in the top left you can see Erin Hills. And when you guys first got going with the system, before you decided to set up your course for crazy Brooks Koepka skills, you started seeing rapid improvements on the average time, right?
we saw immediate improvement on our times. Not only do the players they're aware that they're actually being timed, and subconsciously they're going to move along a little bit faster and not waste time. Caddies as well. They know that they're being timed. I think subconsciously, consciously, they move along a little bit quicker because they didn't want to be the ones that had bad times on their record. So we immediately saw results, and the reason we saw results too is we really didn't have an idea what our pace was. I mean, we could take a guess. We were kind of close, but the Tagmarshal system shows us exactly how long it takes to play, and that way you can start building off of that because you have a benchmark to work with.
Ryan, I know that Baltusrol never had a pace of play problem, much like most of our other customers, but you knew that that was something you wanted to get a really good handle on and do it better going forward.
Yeah, when I got there, pace of play was an issue. It wasn't necessarily a problem, but they wanted a better policy in place, and before we could really do that, we needed some data and statistics to kind of see where we were at. I played a round of golf at Oakmont, I believe, in 2018, and they had the system and kind of walked me through how it worked. And then we dug a little bit deeper that fall and put it in 2019. So now that we actually have great information and great data, we can make better decisions going forward.
Okay, let's jump at how do you optimally manage pace of play? What have you guys learned? What are the do's and don'ts? So there's a golfer journey and experience design that I know Erin Hills take very seriously in terms of getting data on everything from arrival through to the next visit you're on. So this is all very intentional, right? And you guys also employ people that understand that and get it, that the expectations are sky high of people coming to you guys. Give us just a 1 minute of how you put an emphasis on the experience and how you also recruit in line with that and how you get control of it.
Well, the overall experience at Erin Hills, I mean, we broke it down into every experience you could come up with, from the time you check into the welcome house, from the time it takes to drive from the welcome house to the bag drop. What was the bag drop experience like? What was parking like? The walk to the clubhouse. How about the check-in and paying for the green fees? All those things are all experiences rather that we looked at. And one of the ones that was important to us was the starter and the ranger experience with the golfers. And we try to have the starter not only talk about the golf course and what to expect from the players and get them excited about actually playing, but turn into a data collection source where we were asking them, had they been here before? What tees were they playing? Was it an all-female group or an all-male group, or was it a mixed, together? Or anything we could come up with that we could collect from data, we record, and that's part of what we, use with the Tagmarshal data is this data as well to, because it's all analytics and data these days. But and then of course the ranger experience, we train our rangers to be to say certain things and to not say certain things. I mean, you're slow, you guys are holding things up, are all things you'd never hear from our people, rather than saying things like, you're a little out of position right now, how can I help you get back into position? So all these, language is big for us as part of the experience, and keeping it positive. We figure, hey, if the ranger is really nice, and if you have one really nice encounter with them before maybe a pace of play action is needed from this person, they're more likely to work with you if they're on your side and they kind of like you and they had a good interaction to begin with, or even if the first interaction was positive and friendly, they're more likely to react and try to be on your team, on your side, rather than the cranky old ranger that people are expecting. So
we're gonna dig into that, and very excited about that. Ryan, you're obviously taming a very different beast at Baltusrol, which is your A-Type New York member and their guests. How are you designing your experience? What do you guys stand for, just in a nutshell?
Sure, I think Jim and I are probably a little different. He sees, a lot of repeat customers. I see, he probably doesn't see repeat customers. I see the same people quite often. But our members are always bringing guests, so a lot of client, customer golf, and the expectation when you come to Baltusrol is you're going to have an incredible golf experience. So the personal touches and the time we spend with each member and their group is super important. A big part of what we did as we kind of started with the Tagmarshal system was just to communicate to the membership what we're doing and why we're doing it. We're not trying to be invasive and denying your whole round, but we want the experience for everybody that plays that day to be equal. And so that was a big part of our success with Tagmarshal, was just communicating our message and what we were going to use the system for. And you know, very similar to Jim, it's never a confrontational issue on the golf course. It's always a positive kind of conversation, and we're both trying to help each other, and we want play to be faster, and the groups don't want to hold people up either. But it does create a level of awareness, and people become certainly more observant of where they are on the golf course and where groups around them are, since they do know that we're kind of watching throughout the day.
Great. So at this point, we want to quickly look at how it works before we dig into some more of the detail as to how to best manage your course, what the do's and don'ts are. So the technology that Tagmarshal provides is an optimization platform, and that's the core, and the technology is the software, but it does have a front end. It does have some hardware that delivers data. So in both Baltusrol and Erin Hills' example, that happens with what we call a classic tag, which is that little tag you see in the bottom corner. Other setups are using what we call a two-way walker, so this is your walking golf space, that's your Kiowa, your East Lakes, and so on. Then in the cart space, we install those classic tags, so they're hidden away, and you don't notice them, but obviously that's where you get information from, or we do have a screen system. But to reiterate, we're not a GPS in the traditional sense. Our power and what we're providing is the optimization, the back end, the data analytics. And that is what we give to the course. So what this looks like is something like this. So you guys are empowered with line of sight and actionable data. So if you put data on a course, and you can calculate what the risk groups are and who's out there and who's moving where, including your player assistants, your mowers, including your drinks carts, your beer angels. You can very immediately see if it's calculated or presented in a smart way where the issues are. So the times of the classic ranger or marshal going out there, cruising around looking for problems, and maybe or maybe not finding them, and maybe he's anticipating there is an issue here, he's having that your slow conversation that people love to hate, are really gone if you're using the opportunity that is presented with tech. So if you guys are looking at this, which is a slight redesign of Erin Hills, what can you guys see here is happening, and how would your team now work with the groups out there?
That is my golf course, but it's inverted. It's
Just to make it tough for you.
it does make it tough for me. Well, you know, clearly there are two groups on this screen that need immediate attention. That's 6 and 17. The reason they're that magenta color is that indicates that they're a delayer. They're behind the pace, and they're actually holding other people up, like you see tag 18 and 19 are that orange color. Those groups are being held up by 17. Okay. Now they're the ones that are probably even more challenging than tag number 6, because tag number 6 only has 4 more holes to play. They're done. So they probably should have been talked to a lot earlier, and I'm sure they would have had they been at our place. But 17 is the one that needs corrective action.
That is beautifully put. And so you could literally check this now on your phone if Erin Hills wasn't snowed under, and you would know what's happening. And I know that you regularly do that. When you get up in the morning, you already know what's expected, right?
I'll tell you what, it's a great thing to walk into the office and look at the screen and know exactly what's happening on your golf course in the blink of an eye. I don't know, put a price on that. It's fantastic.
So what your team would now do, they might click on this group number 17, and then they get a whole range of information, including where are they, when did they tee off, who's in the group, what tee sheet do you guys use at Baltusrol, right?
We use 14. so which integrates great with the system.
So Forties now feeds the player data into Tagmarshal, and so there's no duplicate effort, and we know who we're talking to, which is great, especially in a private setup. I know you guys have got so much new guest play, the individual player data, not that important, but what you guys track is obviously caddies. But in Ryan's case, he knows exactly who is it, are they guests in this group, yes, no. And what you would see is that they're 6 minutes out of position, they're on the 5th hole, and you can see the progress. There's 2 green bars, that means hole 1 and 2, they went fine. Hole 3, 4, 5, they started to drop off, so there's a negative trend, and hole 5, they probably lost the ball. And you have all this information, and the historic information, without even being out in the course. So, what would your course of action now be in terms of one of your assistants might go out and have a chat, and what would they say in terms of script and how would they approach those guys?
Well, first of all, we try to attack the first 3 or 4 holes. To me, if you're 3 minutes behind pace after 3 holes, that to me means you're 18 minutes behind for 18 holes. That's how I assume and look at it. So we try to get them off to a good start off the first 3 or 4 holes with any interactions or interventions that we need to do, because that, if you wait till 9th or 10th or 11th hole, it's too late. It's too late, and you've let it go too far. So we try and get them right away. But things that might be said is we might we'll do hand signals to the caddies without talking to the guests. We'll actually do a hand signal to the caddy, letting them know, okay, you're a few minutes behind. If you can correct it from here on out, everything will be fine. And they'll signal back, meaning with a hand signal going, okay, I got it, okay, I'll work with them and see what I can do. And then if the caddy hand cannot get the green plenty faster, they'll have an SOS signal to us and to our marshals, and our marshals can go up and quietly ask the caddy, what do you want me to say to these guys? What's the hold up for these guys? And they're going to say something like, oh, they're looking for balls forever. And then we can have that intervention where we try to get them to understand that there's an entire field out there, and they're out of position and causing some of the groups behind them to have to wait a little bit. We're wondering if there was a way for you to help us out and see if you can play the next 2 or 3 holes, 1 minute faster than normal. You don't have to rush, and we'll come back in 2 or 3 holes and check on your progress. And usually that works. They understand. They need to understand their overall position on the golf courses, which is what we try and explain to them.
So the difference is now you have data and information, and it's a very easy base to have a conversation on, and you guys are scripted, and they're well worth to add value. How do you guys do that in the private club space, where this is a sensitive conversation potentially?
Sure, like I said, we did a lot of communication early with the system and what it looks like. We actually sent out a bunch of screenshots similar to what this screen looks like, and explained what the colors mean and how you're affecting other people on the golf course. So our members now have a pretty good understanding of what a green group is, and a magenta and a red, and they're always interested in what color they are. We also emphasize that as we ranger the golf course, which at Baltusrol is done by the professional staff for outside operations, if we drive by and wave and keep going, you're probably just fine. If we stop and watch it for a little bit, it's time to move and catch up a little bit. So usually our first interaction, there's not even a conversation. We have a member in every group, so we have the benefit of the members learning the system as we've used it. So usually if there is a conversation, it means, we've been by you, we watched you for a few holes, and you still haven't caught up. And at that point, sometimes it's just helping the poor caddies. We stay out there and look for golf balls, or we have some halfway houses, so occasionally groups like to hang at the halfway houses, so we'll take their orders ahead of time so that they're ready to go. But very unconfrontational. We just want people to have a great time, and like I said, we have the benefit of the members knowing the system pretty well.
So that shows you how important it is to set expectations and communicate. If we want to quickly summarize some of the don'ts and do's, and we found a really beautiful Marshall photo which was taken at a golf course in Jacksonville. So this is what we're trying to move away from, because this is what golfers hate, and this is your authoritarian, go and look for a problem and let them have it, shout at them, like don't do that. Don't do that to people. So in your experience, just a quick summary, so for our audience here too, some takeaways.
Well, I've talked a lot about the don'ts already with negative attitude and the things not to say, like you're slow or you need to pick it up or you're behind. We talked about all those things. But as far as going back to the do's, aside from the fact about trying to keep every approach to be positive, communication with the field of golf out there is very important. If there's a group like the one we looked at earlier that was out of position, we've tried to work with them. We always circle back to the group and talk to all the groups that are being delayed by them and tell them exactly what it is we're doing. The group in front of you is a little out of position. They're not very good golfers, sir. We're trying to work with them on selecting the right set of tees. But we are trying to engage with them, and we're doing our best. And I'll come back and talk to you in a few holes and see if they've improved at all. You want to diffuse these people, and just the fact that they know that you're trying to do something is more than half the battle out on the golf course. And we'll go back and talk to the 4 or 5 groups behind them, just let them know that there's something going on. Even if we can't fix it, sometimes we can't. They'll still think you know what you're doing, and you're trying to do something, and they're diffused. So that's a big do for us, aside from all the other stuff we talked about.
Ryan, one of the things that I think is very interesting is that you guys don't have on-course assistant in that sense, but you use your pro shop staff.
Yeah, we don't have technical rangers out on the golf course. Before Tagmarshal, I'd actually schedule some of my assistants or the outside operations staff to ranger the golf course. However, at our place, if you're going to go ranger by yourself and you have to drive 36 holes, by the time you find the problem, it can be 6-7 holes into the round of golf. So this has completely changed the way we do it, and we've been able to reallocate staff to spend some additional time with members at the range or on the putting green, and have some more face-to-face interaction. But overall for us, it's just like Jim, you keep everything positive, you try and help the groups as much as you can, and certainly talking to the groups behind the slow group is helpful, because quite often you'll get the problem group to hurry up, and then the group behind them is kind of comfortable at the speed and they fall behind. So just the fact that you're out there and you're visible and your staff's kind of managing the issue goes a long, long way.
So one of the things that's important to start considering is that your front of house at a golf course is not your clubhouse and it's not your pro shop, it is your golf course out there. And in the service industry, you would have a front of house, back of house distinction. Back of house is the cleaners, the dishwasher, that sort of thing. And front of house is your high engagement, high service driven people. So we need to start considering that our front of house is on the course. So we want high engagement, high service, high experience driven people out there and recruit them as such as well. That's what you guys are doing, Ritz-Carlton sort of stuff. And then equip them with the tools that they need so they can be successful. One of the things that we want to look at, and we've talked through this, including the art of managing A-type New York City members, is how to optimize savings and unlock revenue, because where the player experience is a great and noble goal to have, it needs to make business sense. How is it going to make me money and my life easier? Otherwise we wouldn't do it. So what we want to look at is some ways in which optimization helps. I'll just do a quick talk through of how we normally map this out. So what we always want to look at, because of an optimization system, there is a horizon of what's possible, okay? So we're looking at staff savings, for instance. How can we do a better job with less hours? We look at food and beverage opportunities. For instance, if we do 25,000 rounds and 10% of those are at risk of going 40 minutes over, how many of those people now are out of time budget for the day and have to run off and slam the trunk because they've already had 15 phone calls for their next engagement? Now these people can't stay with you and spend money in your food and beverage. If we can turn that around and balance the course so they've got the time freed up for them to spend it with you, what's that worth? Capacity, T-sheet optimization, we'll get Jim to talk to. If we have control and the round times come down and at Pebble Beach, 17 minutes and round time saved, what's that worth in terms of capacity that we're creating while looking after everyone and providing a great experience? So even your $50 round fee course has got an opportunity to make more money. And And that is not just average dollars, and you're going to talk to that now, I hope. Loyalty and repeat play. We want people to be loyal. We want to give them the best possible experience every time they're here. And if somebody, especially in daily fee or in the private club space, where there's a guest that's come along with one of your members and you want this guy to sign up, you need to ensure that you're serving them as well as you can. And if you're not doing it, and if they happen to be there on a day where they have to wait, they might think twice about joining you. So what's that worth? And then lastly, maintenance savings. We have worked with the USGA and Crandon Golf and the golf course designer. Crandon Golf is about 5 hours south in Key Biscayne. And maintenance savings in terms of understanding where are people moving on the course, where's compaction happening, where's opportunity to save money, because nobody ever uses certain parts of the fairway, is now saving them $400,000 a year in irrigation maintenance and other such spends. So what we want to look at quickly, and you guys live in this world in terms of data, what have you guys learned with the day-to-day and month-by-month system usage? This is some Baltusrol data we can look at. It's making it look good, Ryan, don't worry. What are you guys learning? How do you use it to benchmark? And then how do you bring that back to, is it making our life easier? Are we saving money? Are we making money? And we can then talk to the capacity opportunities. So Ryan, what does this look like? This is one of your days in July. You want to play at 4 hours, 12 minutes. Your day came through at 4:06. It looks to me like your little dial in the bottom right, 41% on pace, 41% within 10. So 82% of your players would have gone and said, this was great. What can you see that your team has done, and how did it go?
Yeah, I think the system overall for us, what we've learned the most is just how our property works and what the course routing looks like. We know we have pockets on the golf course that tend to be slower than other areas. We've also been able to isolate days and specific time of those days that are going to be a little bit slower. What the brown times are like for member groups, how that differs from a group of members and guests. So overall, you just get a much better understanding of your property and how pace moves. And for us, the ability to kind of see the problems before they happen has been huge. So we can catch them early, we can address them early. And the ability to kind of reallocate staff into certain spots of the operation. My philosophy at a private club is it's really about your relationship with the members. And the ability to take people off the golf course when there's no pace of play issues and have them spend more time with members has been a huge asset to us. But overall, it's just, even after just 1 year, you have a much better way of predicting what's going to happen that day.
Jim, you're obviously a power user with your team. You have helped innovate around this, and this is something that we put a lot of emphasis on, because while we are data and system specialists, we're not golf operation specialists. You guys are that. So we spend a lot of time in really building those partnerships and learning. What have you guys learned at Erin, which now runs beautifully like clockwork?
I tell you, after a few years of collecting all this data, we, with their help, of course, came across looking at most of our mornings where pace of play was considerably faster than the afternoon. And I'm sure a lot of you have that as well. And it's a function of our property. We have overnight guests because we're a resort. A lot of these overnight guests play in the afternoon, and then will stay overnight and then play the next morning. So when they're there in the afternoon, they got nowhere to go. So they're going to have a good old time out on the golf course. But when they wake up the next morning to play, they play a lot faster than they did the first round. They've got travel plans, they got somewhere to go, or another golf course, or they're heading to Whistling Straits or whatever. So there's motivation to play it faster. And plus, we found out that our people who signed up to play in the morning that were coming just for daily golf were accustomed to wanting to play in the morning. They prefer to do that because they feel like they're fast players and they want to get done around lunchtime and go on with their day. So we look at the data, and then as we get into the fall, with the daylight becoming an issue and capacity dwindling, we were able to switch from 12-minute tee times beginning in August to 11-minute tee times in the morning up until 11 o'clock, and then switching back to 12. Now, this is something we never would have thought to do years ago, but now we have the data that shows us that. It created about 400 extra golfers in the fall that we comfortably got through like we did in the past, and if that $300 a player for a green fee, add that up, that's a lot of, it's over $100,000 of revenue that we just would have left on the table. So, and that speaks, I think, volumes. I mean, I know not everybody has high green fees like that, but you can save a lot of money with the system. So, as far as making life easier, yeah, you know, my GM not grinding on me about the budget, so a happy GM makes me happy. So, that's one of the main things that we did, was use it as a revenue stream, and applying the data the right way and looking at it logically, and it's been a home run.
Thanks, Jim. Ryan, I'm going to ask you to talk about savings just now. Just one comment on the capacity increase. We know that most clubs aren't as booked up as Erin Hills, but you are booked up on certain days a week. So if your Saturday or your Thursday or your busy day, if you had more capacity, would you be able to sell it? Probably. What you need to realize is that your base cost on that day is already covered. It's like flying your airplane at 80% capacity versus 85% capacity. That extra 5% is more valuable dollars than the others because it's a straight bottom line profit, technically. So that is a huge and very, very interesting opportunity. Also, more people through the door means more food and beverage. And if you're serving everybody a better experience, you're also creating loyalty. From your point of view, Ryan, I know that savings, because you're not as revenue driven, savings and obviously player loyalty is key for you. Where have you seen savings opportunities with the system?
You know, we're not quite as focused on generating additional revenue, but where we've saved is just in general payroll. So where in the olden days we'd schedule someone to be on the golf course from 10 in the morning to 5 o'clock at night, rangering, we might only need them out there from 1 to 2:30 now. And you know, that comes from my staff for the outside operations. So, you know, I'm not as concerned with the revenue portion of it, but I'm more driven by the experience that members and guests are going to have, and then the extra time my staff can spend with people, whether that's playing golf or teaching. It doesn't really matter to me as long as they're having some face time with the membership. But we've been able to increase that face time without adding any cost because we know when we need to be on the golf course, and we're not, you know, wasting our time up there on days there's no issue.
So Baltusrol's probably got a waiting list from New Jersey to Manhattan. Not every private club is that fortunate, and there's a lot of competition. So what we're seeing often is, especially the clubs that are looking to gain that elusive under 40 member, they need a competitive advantage. And what is it? What is the most important asset this young person has? I'm the quintessential problem to golf. I've got 2 kids. I'm 40 years old. My wife's a dynamite package. So for me to go, I want to play, and it's only 7 hours, is tough. Okay, so if I know that I can play somewhere and I've guaranteed experience, 4 hours, 4, 10, whatever it is, and there's consistency around this, that is something that I will consider over the lottery, which, oh, what if it's 5 hours, 5.5, then I can't stay and have a beer with my mates. So a lot of private clubs using this as a competitive advantage, and I know that the Wisconsin club down in Milwaukee, which is a colleague of yours, they have gained members just through the ability of saying, where it used to be a lottery, we know, we're now doing this better, and we're investing in your experience, we value your time. To them, a member's worth $12,000 a year, they've gained 12 more, just on the basis of being known for that. We are now a four-round course. Absolutely.
For those of you in the daily fee or resort category, in my mind, we have a capacity each day, and then there's a realistic capacity. I think I try to define where that threshold is of players returning or not, you know, where you're gonna cross that line. I would much rather tee off 120 golfers comfortably and get them all around with a great experience. And I'm confident that all 120 are gonna come back at some point. Or do I go for, I'm gonna jam 160 players out there today because I can capacity, I can make it happen that way. But it could be slow. There could be a lot of hold-ups, even with the system working hard. And now you have more than half of those people that say, yeah, you know, but it was okay for one time, but it was slow and I'm not gonna come back. So that's important to us, and I think you
you should define what your capacity is and your realistic capacity and where you think that threshold is that you're kind of pushing the boundaries to subtracting from your return visitors.
I think what you're also saying is you're earning the right for a higher green fee, right? By providing the best possible experience. Just to quickly move back to the system, Ryan, this is what we call a track map. We picked some PGA members because obviously they're all in pace always. These guys flew through Baltusrol low and 351. How do you guys use this information for the odds-sensitive conversation, and how do you also use information to report to your committee around who are sensitive members and who's not handling their guests well?
Sure, we use this screen quite a bit. Actually, it's nice to be able to watch how somebody moved around the golf course, and what color their beacon kind of changed as they went through the day. So quite often we can, this map really shows us where the slowest parts of our golf course are, which are 7 through 11 tough stretch of holes with the halfway house in between. So that we just know that's an area we can focus a lot of our attention on when we're out there. But the track is great if you need to have a sensitive conversation with a member or a customer, because it really shows everything. It shows where they were on the golf course, how long it took them to get there, when they slowed down, if they were holding somebody up. We leave quite a bit of notes on there. So when we're swapping in and out staff and I head out after Jim was rangering, I know where he left off and what conversations he's already had. And those are bookmarked in there forever. So, if it's a group that was really slow and we talked to them 5 times, it's really easy to have a follow-up conversation for a golf committee member or a board member with that specific individual and say, look, we asked you 5 times to hurry up, and our policy is, 4 hours and 12 minutes, and unfortunately you're 4:40, and it's happened a couple times. They're going to lose their privileges to play at peak times. So the system's great for being able to have an objective conversation with a member and have some actual facts in front of you, and they're not really disputable. And you're not looking to start an argument, but you're trying to explain that their actions are having a negative impact on the rest of the membership.
Thank you, gents. We are nicely on pace, as expected. Let's take a couple of minutes for questions.
Does the system have some sort of built-in technology? For instance, if a group leaves after the 5th hole, so now there's a gap, things have opened up, there's an opening. Is it all time-based? Does it understand that the group now has an opportunity to close a gap? How does that work?
Yes, it understands. It also understands the group plays through another group. So why would anyone leave after the 5th? What are you guys doing?
Our clubhouse is right there, as a matter of fact, and the 9th hole takes you out to the furthest extremity of the golf course. So we have a lot of people that come out late in the day, just play 5, in the afternoon, something like that.
So no, it would understand that. And in your case, normally we work in 9s, and our system would understand, okay, you've now played a 9, and then it checks, are you continuing? Then I'm making this an 18. But in your case, we would say a 5 is possible. So we'd calculate that and then stick it into the intelligence behind it. Question?
Can you characterize the startup time to get going with it, with the training and introducing people to it, the challenges anyone had with getting started with this? And then year to year, what kind of training are you doing year to year with this system?
Sure. So any software is an evolution. Much like your course is never perfect, it's an evolution. So we have our customer success manager at TC, I'll introduce just now. He's in Atlanta, and our team does a lot of education annually. It's ongoing. Also, sometimes there's knowledge transfers because there's staff changes. We want our new system features to be well understood as the season starts, so you get the most out of the system. And I think we also differentiate ourselves in terms of how we help you understand your course. And maybe Ryan, you're the most recent. What was it like for you guys to understand and get to know the system, and also end of season reporting? How has that helped you guys?
Yeah, I think we discussed implementing the system last year at this time of the show. We ultimately decided in mid-February we were going to do it. So we started April 1st, and I think you need to track 100 rounds, is that correct, to kind of get the optimized time to get going, which we did in a couple days. We did most of our training online. The portal for training was great. It obviously takes a little while for your entire staff to get on board, but that wasn't more than a week or two. and just to understand what the colors mean and how the system works and how you leave notes. And I'd say by May 1st, we were fully functional on the system. In terms of reporting, it's great. I mean, they have some great reports in the system. They can also do a much deeper dive and send you a document that's about 80 pages long that is quite impressive and goes into great depth about what your course is like hour by hour and day by day. But for anybody that's somewhat tech savvy, it's a pretty simple system.
Hey Brian, do you have a member of your staff that's daily like looking at it throughout the day? Like, do you put somebody in charge? Because I think we'll have it up in our pro shop and then maybe in our starter building, but that person's not necessarily looking at it full time. They may be in a different tab. So how do you guys do that?
It's a great question. We actually have TVs in a couple spots. One in my office, one in the assistant's office, one with our director of outside operations, and then we have one in the entrance to the men's locker room, which is visible to members as well. But we have one PGA professional dedicated to being in the golf shop at all hours, so we're open from 7 to 7, so like 2 6-hour shifts. And they actually have it up on our POS terminals. So who's ever in the shop that morning or that afternoon is responsible for just kind of pulling it up and checking it every 10 or 15 minutes, and then radioing if he needs assistance.
Is it a separate screen or is it just a tab on the computer in the shop?
It's just a tab. It's web-based, so you just pull it up on our POS is actually web-based too, so it's just pulling up a different screen.
Has there been any resistance to making that information public as far as sensitivity towards that? Has there been any conflict on that?
Before my arrival at Baltusrol, they used to post times of members in the locker room, and depending on who was on that list, it might come off the bulletin board rather quickly. So we don't share the information, with the exception of the golf committee and the board. The only time we really share it is if there's a major issue and we want to look at the player profile and see how many times it's been an issue. But we don't make it public for the entire membership. It's not the goal of our system. It's just to kind of manage the experience for everybody that's there, and when we do have an individual issue, we handle that on a case-by-case situation.
So in general, it's a very positive approach. We don't want to shame anyone, and that's something that we encourage also in our education. To give you an example, Eastlake, the famous host of the Tour Championship, they've upgraded from the Classic to our two-way so that their players have got more information at their own fingertips, and they're saying it has been the most successful addition because it's got an immediate benefit to the member experience, and they absolutely love it. And our VP of Sales was at the AGM end of year, and obviously they're going through what have we done this season, and they literally had a ton of questions and applause for what the club had done in terms of taking care of the members' time and looking after the flow on the course, and it was super well received, and that is something that over the last 5 years we see at virtually every course. More questions?
Sorry, how do you deal with private cards in private clubs? Any issue with information or GPS being left on?
No, that's a good question, especially in Florida. So we've got a lot of clubs that have a situation where they've got their own fleet where they can do as they like. So they might choose to put a two-way screen in there with a GPS, or they might choose to put a classic tag just so they know where everyone is. And then the question about private cards, there's two ways in which we generally tackle that. It normally doesn't make sense for a private card to get a GPS screen, right? So they would normally install the unit if there is reluctance on the member's part, and often, especially in Florida, there might be a fleet of 300 private cards. How do you convince those guys to come on board? They may not want to be tracked off the course because they're going to the wrong place at the wrong time, or their 16-year-old son is having a joyride, whatever the case is, and coming onto your course where he's not supposed to. But so generally what we would then do is say, okay, you can get those guys started with our classic tags. As they join around, you clip them, and then when they come off, you get it back. And if they happen to leave after the 15th hole and going home, that doesn't matter because you know who they are, you know where they are, you get the tag back. So that's working really well in a lot of our Palm Beach area courses. And then after a while, once there's more acceptance, because the players realize I'm not being tracked by Big Brother, but they can see me when I'm on course. And if I really need to, because my 6-year-old son has taken a cart where he's not supposed to go, we can find him. And then it's time to look at installing. And so there's many stories like that. And they now those schools have control, and they know where everybody is, and they know who's sneaking around, and obviously also making sure that everybody's got the same chance at a great experience out there playing. More questions?
I noticed you showed EasyLink in companies out there. Do you integrate with EasyLink systems?
Yes, so we integrate with EasyLinks, 40s, Club Essentials, Club Profit, Chronogolf, 50, virtually those who cover 90% of the market we've got integration with, and then there's other integrations like golfweather.com that's feeding accurate weather information. So every single day, if you look historically, how did we do last year at our member guest? What was our setup like? What was our pace like? And what was the weather like? So you can look at historically, so you've got all that context. So we're really looking at being a platform and adding value in existing ecosystem so that you guys can get the most out of your asset. More questions?
I'm curious about cost.
As Jim would say, Facebook's up 100 times over, so it's not an issue. But generally, it's anywhere in the range of $500 a month to $1,500 a month, depending on the system tier. Not everybody needs geofencing, not everybody needs the deep dive data, so you can choose those modules as you wish, you can upgrade as you wish. Some people may choose to go classic tags, which is obviously more cost sensitive, and some may want the whole business with 10-inch screen. Anyone here? We've got Sam Wiley from Weebruin, we've got Christoph from Alcanada, we've got the team from Quaker. If you've got any questions, first-hand experiences, go track them down. And if you would like to come and see us at booth 3023, our team is there to inform you and talk about your goals and what you're going to achieve. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.